Hey guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. It has been such a long time since we got the joy and privilege of recording one.
Right.
But we're back. We're back recording another one. And this one we're going to call What We Learned Since Leaving Full-Time Ministry. So it's kind of a bit of a loaded question.
Right.
Lots to cover. I mean, we've learned a lot. But
right.
First, we kind of wanted to start out with a little update because it's been so long, so we want to fill you in what's going on in our lives and how we kind of got to this point.
Yeah, I feel like we could talk about a lot of different things, but basically at the end of December, God had really been pulling on our hearts and calling us to leave the church that we had been working in, which is kind of crazy, and especially for us being really young, newly married, that was a really huge decision for us to make. And having since made that decision, we have no regret. We absolutely know that that's what we were meant to do. But that does not mean that it has made this new season any less challenging, because right now we're not working in ministry, hence the title. And so that's been pretty hard. We also are not working in the same jobs. And so, yeah, different workplaces, very new environments, as I'm sure you probably can understand. So it's definitely, a lot has happened, and honestly for me at least, a wrestle with God of just what is this season supposed to look like, and who's meant to be in our lives, who do we want speaking into our lives, what does my relationship with God look like when what I want isn't happening, right? Or what I feel like God has called us to do, we're not necessarily doing vocationally or for all of the time that we have in the day-to-day. So it's definitely been really hard, but we want to talk about what we're learning, what we have learned, what we're going to continue to learn in this season for however long God wants us to be in this season. But on a happier note, Chet got glasses because he's supposed to be wearing glasses, and I changed my hair and got bangs. So if you don't like either of those things, don't say it in the comments.
But, I mean, we wanted to just save the most important update for
last.
The glasses, and then the
bangs. Yeah, and of course we still have Selah, and I'm sure you might hear her in this video. She's getting really big, and we still love her, even though she is still crazy, so, to say the least.
Yeah. She a brat.
Yeah, let's just say it outright.
Let's get into it. Alright, so something that we have learned since leaving full-time ministry is that the measure of obedience isn't in the outcome. And what that means is knowing that we're obedience isn't determined by circumstances or situations that happen after the fact. Yeah. We can both say that we felt super called by the Lord to leave our positions in ministry and to just embrace what God had next for us, even though we still kind of don't even know what that is, and we're just kind of open-handed.
Right.
But just because we were obedient to doing what we felt God telling us doesn't mean that everything is just going to be perfect on the other side.
Or the fruit's going to come right away, anything like that. So.
Because it's definitely just been like a season of hardship. It's been a season where we've really had to put on like endurance, steadfastness, had to be very patient with one another, with our dog, and just with all kinds of situations. But something that has just repeatedly come up, which is, I feel like, a sign that God is really trying to put a message in your brain, is that obedience is not measured by an outcome.
Right.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to add to that is, like, I think it's taught us to be patient with God too. Or at least me. I don't know. It sounds bad, but I've never felt like God has really like punished me before. But in a season like this, it feels like you start to like let doubt creep in of like, well, who does God really say that I am? Or like, what does He actually call me to do? Because it felt so right for us to be in ministry. We absolutely know that we're called to ministry. We just don't know what capacity. Like, is that the local church? Are we like writing our own worship songs, or like out on YouTube, releasing things here? And so it's just been like a season of a lot of like self-reflection, but then also just reflection on our relationships with Christ and how it really is like what you said today, like to live for Christ and to die is gain, right? Yeah. Sorry, I felt like I messed up.
She reads the Bible.
Yeah, I do read the Bible. I just didn't want to like mix it up. But basically, it's like there's going to be like a ton of suffering here, and like I want to live for Christ. And so if that means suffering, then so be it, Lord. Like sign me up. And that sounds really bad, but like that's just kind of how it's felt in this season, and that's kind of the real honest like part of that. And so another thing that we've learned is that like this season is a part of God's will. And to try to wrap your mind around that is really hard, especially if you feel like these are the gifts God has given me, and you know that you're in a season where God has like opened your eyes, you know that. And so then when you walk into different seasons where maybe you're not using those gifts in the way that you want to, or you feel like God has been like, this is what you're created to do and this is how I want you to use them, but you're in a season where you're not using them that way, it just feels very hard to stay like close to God or feel like you're close or within His will, I guess. Like, I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's been an eye-opening thing to know that like this is a season that is a part of like God's design and plan for us and our story of where He's taking us, and like I know that He's going to use it. I just think it's definitely hard to like understand that now, and so I think that that's something that we're learning, and just embracing that, being okay with that, and not having to be like, well, this is just a lesser season than others, or this is a worse season than others. It's challenging. It's definitely filled with suffering, no doubt about that, but that doesn't mean it has to be a lesser season. I believe that God is continuing to refine us, and that's been a huge just humbling experience, and to know that like the creator of the universe, the God of the universe, is still holding us like in the palm of His hand, and He still continues to be faithful even in the little things. I can't tell you how many times I've just been having the worst day, and I open my Bible to the Psalms, and the Psalm just speaks directly, exactly to what I ask God to like just show me again. Like, God, reassure me that like you are who you say you are, and that I am who you say that I am. And He just does every time, or helps me in my time of need. And that's the God that we serve. And He's never going to like not live up to that. He will always live up to who He is, because He's faithful and He's good, and He keeps His promises. And we're His children, so He's going to take care of us. So yeah, that was a mouthful, but that's something else we're learning.
Well, and I feel like going along with that, like, and speaking about it being like a lesser season, so to speak, I think that it's important for us even to recognize going into our days, like with our secular jobs, just doing something that can at times feel like, wow, like what purpose am I serving right now? Especially coming off of like everything we do in like the ministry job is like, this is for Jesus, this is for Jesus, like on fire for that, but it's like selling shoes, like it's really hard to like have that mindset, like this is for Jesus. So I think it's been really like cool to also learn like, okay, like how do I live for Jesus in this moment? How do I die to myself and look to meet the needs of those around me, and to be a lamp on top of a hill and not under a basket, like hidden. Like we are called to be the hands and feet of Jesus. So it's been also challenging to kind of see the importance of living day to day faithfully to Jesus, and walking hand in hand with Him, kind of in the mundane moments of our secular jobs.
Right, and something else that we had brought up while we were talking about this video was just like, something that shocked me is how many people have just been brutally honest with what they think about us, or our decisions, or why we left the church, or you know, all these different things. It's been really crazy, but it's also a blessing, because we've been praying over our community for, I mean, while we were dating, and even before that, because I've struggled with community my whole life, good Christian community. And so we have been praying over that for a really long time, and God has continually given us answers and direction and clarity and confirmation on all of that. But it was just very eye-opening to see the amount of people that react the way that you wouldn't really think that they would, or to see us in a completely different light, or like we're bad or we've left the faith because we've left the church that we were a part of. And I think I've gained a lot of empathy for people who have church hurt, who have been hurt by the church. And the church meaning like a building, but it's also the people in the church, because people are sinful. People are still broken, even if you go to church, even if you proclaim the name of Jesus, like you still like sin, you still mess up. And I think sometimes that's the hardest to see. That's the hardest place to see sin, because you're like, well, these people are supposed to love Jesus and be so kind and just like serve people, and that's not always everyone's motives. Not everyone's motives are always good, and that can fall on people who are in the church too. And so that's just been really crazy to kind of walk through and to heal from and to heal in and embrace that healing process. So that's been something I'm working on.
Probably one of the most important things I'd say that we've been learning and kind of walking through is like what it truly means to abide in Jesus, and what it truly means to walk hand in hand with Him every day and rely on His strength. Because man, like I feel like we're kind of like hitting so much road bumps, quite literally. We had a flat tire the other day.
Talk about spiritual warfare anyways.
Yeah, but it feels like we're hitting like so many road bumps that like it is impossible for me to love evil well. It's impossible for me to be kind. It's impossible for me to have compassion if I'm not like walking hand in hand with Jesus every day, because like I can instantly see a difference. Like I can just immediately see a difference when I'm like, you know what, like I'm a few steps away from Jesus right now. Like, man, I didn't get that quiet time this morning. I didn't spend time in prayer. I didn't get to really bring adoration to Jesus this morning, or throughout my day. And like you feel that, and it's just been something that I think has been really important for us to learn. That's really going to matter for the rest of our lives and in all of the seasons, because like that is just something that is always going to be true, and always necessary. Like Jesus is, He's our daily bread, He's our portion, He's our cup, He's literally all that we need to get through, and like nothing else can pull us through. It's nothing but Jesus. Yeah,
and I think, again, for me, I feel like Chet and I, like, it's cool because, like, obviously our testimonies are different, our stories with God are different, but then, like, walking through, like, the exact same season and hearing each other's hearts on it is really interesting and good. It's good to talk about that stuff, but I feel like for me, a lot of my life, I tried to make my relationship with Jesus, like, I have to like be joyful, and I never could like always be joyful, or like I have to just like rely on the word, and it's almost like I have to be some form of like perfect, even though I never would be perfect, but I have to, like, I can never doubt God, or like, no, I don't struggle with that, and like all of that stuff. And so when this season with the church came up, I wrestled a lot, and I don't think I actually really wrestled with it until we actually left the church, because I felt so consumed by what was happening there, and just the feelings that I had, the emotions that I was going through, the way that I was treated. I mean, all these different situations. Like leaving the church, I was finally like, wow, my eyes are open to like, not every relationship with Jesus looks like that, and if yours does, that's beautiful, that's great, but I just realized that it's okay for me to struggle with God, or to actually be completely real and be like, God, I don't feel you right now. Like, I want to believe in your word, but it's really hard because all this is happening, and I've prayed over and over again, like, Lord, if it takes suffering for me to come closer to you, then let that happen. But when that prayer actually comes to life, you're like, well, wait, I actually didn't want that. Like, and so I've started to understand like what a real authentic relationship with Jesus looks like, and I'm never going to be the same now. And it feels almost like I have more scars that I now get to tell, like more stories about how Jesus has like healed me from those things, if that makes sense. Like I feel like I've learned more parts of who Jesus is, like his character and how he cares for me, even when I have a heart that wanders. Or there's this song that has a line that like says, Lord, would you help my unbelief? And like I would have never been a person that was like unbelief, because I believe in God fully, all of that. It's just like Satan is real. The enemy is alive and working, and obviously Jesus has already won, like he has already claimed victory, but when we allow Satan to come in and we start to believe lies, it's really hard to get out of that spiral. And so that's something that I've been working through, but I just feel like because of that, my dependence on Jesus has become even stronger, even bigger, even greater, because it's like, Lord, I literally can't do this with like anyone else but you. And even though it feels like you're not here, like every time he comes through, and like when we talk to him, he listens and he answers, even if it's not the answer that we wanted or in the timing that we wanted. Yeah. So that's been really good. And I know that this was kind of more of like a heavy video, and you can probably tell it's a weighty subject. We haven't obviously gotten on camera and like talked about this. We've only talked to each other and talked to our like close people that are in our lives, and we're doing what we need to do as far as like healing and finding the right community and finding a new church. But it's a journey. I guess that's the word. And it's okay to be on a journey. It's okay to struggle with things and allow God to work in that. Allow him to show you the broken parts of yourself that only he can remedy, right? Only he can restore. So, yeah.
That's good. Well, I think the thing that we come out knowing, though, is that our God is faithful.
He is faithful.
And he's good, and we know he's going to pull us through. We know he's going to show us what he has next for us, and on his perfect timing, so we can just rest assured, and continue walking hand in hand with him.
Yeah, and that's what's exciting. Like, we know that God's best is coming. God has better, so we don't want a plan that we could come up with, or we don't want to, let's say, be in ministry right now because we think that we're ready, but God's like, hold the horses, like I've got something better down the line. And so we're just really learning that this season has a purpose, and we have purpose in this season. And we aren't just out of our purpose because we're in different jobs or in a different season of life. And that doesn't make us less than. We still can be proactive and use the gifts that God has given us in other ways, in other outlets. Hence why we're finally back on YouTube, and hopefully we'll be here more often. So, that's kind of it. You guys should see more from us soon. We have some exciting things coming up.
We do?
So, yeah. So, amidst it being a terrible season, we actually do have a few exciting things coming up.
Yeah.
So, I think it's going to be good. You guys will just have to wait to hear about those.
Wait and see.
Yeah. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. We're so happy to be back. It felt so good to actually sit down and do another video. So,
see you next time.
Yeah. I'm a living, breathing miracle, and I just gotta testify. Okay, you wanna practice the intro?